Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Moe. We're here today, of course, to talk about Destiny's Rise of Iron expansion, which went live this morning at 5 a.m. EST after the weekly reset. Unfortunately, there was about 400,000 Guardians lined up at the doors to become Iron Lords. The doors kind of broke, the bridge they were standing on broke, the servers went down. It took Bungie about an hour and a half, 2 hours, but they did eventually get everything back up and running, and it was smooth sailing from that point on. I was able to get into the expansion, play through the game's story, which took me about 3.5 hours, and then head out to the Plaguelands and start to really see the depth and the amount of content that was available inside of Rise of Iron. So today, right now, I'm going to bring you guys my quick review for the Rise of Iron expansion. We're going to talk about the story, and we're going to talk a little bit about what you can expect after you complete the story, and we're going to do it all completely spoiler-free. So if you haven't had the opportunity to play it yet, and you're just looking for something to hold you over while you're at work, this will be the perfect video for that. Now, Rise of Iron is set up in a lot of ways the exact same way that Bungie set up The Taken King. Again, you play through the campaign, and then you're presented with some quests that take you out in the new patrol zone. Bungie themselves, however, did say that Rise of Iron was going to be smaller than The Taken King. I mean, it costs $10 less. Yet, in my experience, outside of the story, which was definitely shorter than what we had in The Taken King, there's a hell of a lot of content in Rise of Iron. There's an outstandingly well-designed social space with lots and lots of beautiful touches, and there is an insane amount of challenges, missions, and quests to complete once you get past Rise of Iron's main story. Honestly, it feels deeper, it feels heavier and meatier than anything we saw in The Taken King, and that says a lot. You know, I think The Taken King was really well designed. It was one of my favorite Destiny expansions. It was, I think, the first really well done expansion, and it was also kind of a turning point for Destiny, right? It was when Bungie really started to identify with the community and build something special. I think they've continued that trend with Rise of Iron without a doubt. And when we talk about Rise of Iron's story, I would say that it is very much on par, if not a step above, what they did in The Taken King. That's a good thing, at least for me, because I really liked The Taken King story. I think they did a fantastic job with character, story delivery, and presentation in The Taken King. Obviously, Cayde 6 was a standout character, the sort of comic relief for The Taken King. And there was this wonderful little triangle between Cayde 6, Zavala, and Eris Morn. Of course, the Guardian, the player you, was kind of caught in the middle of that. I really liked the way they presented that. They've done something similar in Rise of Iron. This time around, the Guardian's in the middle, and we've got this triangle between Lord Saladin, Shiro from the Vanguard, who actually is a hunter that works under Cayde 6, and the newly introduced Tyra Zarn, who is an archivist who will also decrypt engrams for you inside of the new social space. She is an old friend of Lord Saladin's, who has come back to help deal with the new threat that exists inside of Rise of Iron. All in all, really impressed by that. Like I said, the story delivery for Rise of Iron, I think, is extremely well done. I think Bungie is learning, and it's definitely showing inside of Rise of Iron. I just had a lot of fun, you know, for something that was only 3.5 hours long. It felt really well paced. The story presentation kept me extremely interested. I wanted to go from the next thing to the next thing. I just wanted to see what was going to happen. I wanted to see where the story was going to unfold. And when I realized that things were kind of starting to wrap up, I was sad. Not sad that it was short, but sad that my journey was coming to an end. I simply wanted more of it. I wanted to know what was happening next. Now, a few of the developers from Bungie have already said that in a lot of ways this is chapter 1 of the Iron Lords of Rise of Iron. There's definitely more planned for the future of Destiny, and they have made me very, very excited for that. That's all I can really say. Let's talk a little bit more about Lord Saladin, though. You know, I like Shiro. I think we get a good sense of his personality. The same thing goes for Tyra Zarn. You know, there's some wonderful interactions. While there aren't a lot of them, there's some really great interactions and communication lines throughout that 3.5 hours that give each of these characters, at least they give the player a good sense of the personality that these characters have. But when it comes to Lord Saladin, Bungie obviously went a step further. He's a very important character in the Rise of Iron expansion because it's all about the Iron Lords, and he's the last remaining Iron Lord, of course. But I think for the player, for me on a personal level, and I know for many of you, he has for the longest time just been the guy in the really cool armor standing next to the flaming gong. He opens up his doors occasionally, and he lets a bunch of Guardians get salty, shooting each other in the face inside of the Iron Banner. That's about all I know about him. I know a little bit about his history because of the lore that I've read, but it doesn't go any further than that. You know, we really don't get a good sense of his personality, the character, the person that Saladin actually is. Rise of Iron blows that all out of the water, and I at least developed a really fantastic emotional connection with Saladin, and I think it's the best job that Bungie has done in terms of forming a connection between the player and a character inside of Destiny so far. There's some really wonderful and badass moments in the way that Saladin communicates to the player, the sort of knowledge and in a lot of ways the responsibility that he shares with the player as a guardian on their path throughout the story of Rise of Iron. It's just really well executed. You know, again, for 3.5 hours, they seem to get a lot done. They communicate a lot to the player, and they develop a lot of personality and characteristics with all of the new characters that are introduced. It has me really excited for the future of Destiny. It has me excited to see how they could potentially do the same with characters like Shaxx and Zavala and Ikora. Bungie's learned a lot. Rise of Iron makes that very apparent. Let's talk combat and gameplay, though. Obviously, there's a lot more to Rise of Iron than just the story. This is still a first-person shooter. It is still Destiny. You're going to be shooting a lot of things. This is the one area in which I was okay. I won't say that I was blown away or extremely impressed. I do think that the final fight was really well done. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to talk any more about it. But all in all, the combat experience that you have with Rise of Iron story it's good. It's solid. It's not spectacular. It's not extremely impressive. It's just well honed. It's well crafted. It's well paced. You never feel like you're trudging through waves and waves of enemies. A lot of this probably has to do with the fact that you can only play the campaign on normal difficulty. So even someone like myself playing it on normal didn't really have any sort of like extreme difficulty on my way to the end of the campaign. I would have actually liked to see Bungie give us a heroic difficulty for the campaign to play through. You know, I think especially for people who are playing with friends, that would have been a nice bit of challenge. I think they relied a little bit too much on the Siva engineered Fallen, the splicers as they called this time around. They're obviously a focus of Rise of Iron, and I think Bungie, for the most part, expected them to really pull the combat into a special place. Maybe they didn't, maybe they did, but it definitely didn't, at least not for me. We really only get to see a taste of the potential damage, the potential difficulty that the splicers could provide inside of combat because of the normal difficulty. That sucks a little bit, but you also have to realize that you still have everything going on in the Plaguelands. You still have all of the heroic content, all of the, you know, the strike content, and of course the raid eventually. That's where I think we're going to get a better idea for how the splicers are going to modify the ways in which the Fallen attempt to kill us as the Guardians. It just isn't something that you really get to see or experience in the game's story on a normal difficulty. So, while it frustrates me, I guess I'm also okay with that because I know I'll get more of that, again, inside of those harder difficulty challenges like strikes and raids and nightfalls and so on and so forth. Outside of that, they didn't really take a lot of risks with Rise of Iron when it came to combat, which, let me say, I think is completely understandable. I don't think that it's exactly the time and place to be taking big risks, as this is potentially the final expansion before Destiny 2. We already know that a lot of their resources and efforts are being pretty much relocated to working on Destiny 2, so they really looked at the time constraints that they had to develop this expansion. They looked at the resources, and I think they built the best possible thing they could without taking a bunch of risks just for the sake of taking a bunch of risks and having the expansion and its quality fall short because of that. So as much as I would have liked to see them, you know, give us some vehicle segments or do something really cool, I understand the boundaries that they had to work in, and I think there's still some fun stuff. Again, I'm not going to spoil it, but, you know, you play through that 3.5 hours, and there's some fun little surprises throughout the course of Rise of Iron story that, again, kept me playing. The story, I think, was the biggest thing for me. This is the first time I'm saying this, but I had way more fun just absorbing the story and the information inside of Rise of Iron in that 3.5 hours than I did with the combat. What does that say about Bungie and what they've learned about crafting stories? I don't know. I think it just says they've gotten better at it. So, in the end, I'm really excited for what's next for Destiny when we talk about story presentation. I think they're in a great direction, and I can't wait to see the combat, you know, start to improve and follow up as the story seems to grow as well. Now, once you wrap up that 3.5 hours, again, much like the Taken King, you're going to be pushed out into the Plague Lands. There are going to be a bunch of other missions and quests that are given to you directly, and there's also a bunch of challenges. One set of said challenges is a new book. So much like they did with the Moments of Triumph for Year 2, in which you actually had a book where you could complete challenges and level it up to unlock shaders and emblems, you now have the same thing for Rise of Iron. Except it's a bit more badass. This is like a dictionary style book, not just a small pamphlet anymore. There are 5 pages of challenges. There's some stuff for Crucible, there's some stuff for the Plague Lands, there's stuff for like running Nightfalls and Heroics and playing through the story. There's even a mystery page with hidden challenges to unlock. As you complete these challenges, you'll earn XP and essentially completion progress for the Rise of Iron book. As you do that, you'll level up, which then gives you access to gear and guns and shaders. So it's another way to unlock cool stuff by completing very specific and preordained challenges and missions. That kind of stuff works really well in Destiny, and I really quite like it. I'm really happy about them embracing that and implementing it further in the Rise of Iron experience. Depending on what type of Destiny player you are, I think you're easily going to get anywhere from 40 to 100 plus hours out of the Destiny expansion. If you're someone like me, who for the most part plays through the story, you know, does a bunch of the completion and stuff, goes for weapons and challenges, and then gets myself just where I need to be to run the raid at least one time, you'll probably get 40 to 50 hours. If you're that type of person who likes to min-max and get to maximum light level and prepare to run the hardest difficulty of the raid whenever it releases, you will without a doubt get well over 100 hours, and I think you'll have a really good time doing it. I think there's a lot of great content in this game. I think it's really well paced, and the amount of challenges that I'm already seeing, that's what's making me confident when I talk about pacing and when I talk about, you know, just making sure the player is going towards a specific goal and not just blindly grinding away for XP or for, you know, materials to unlock the next piece of equipment. My final thoughts, guys, on Rise of Iron, it is well worth your $30. And if you're someone who has yet to play Destiny, consider picking up the complete collection. You know, get all of the expansions plus the base game for $65 or whatever it is in your respective territory. Grab some friends, maybe get them to join in with you. They're going to give you an XP boost to get to level 40. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. You can play through the entire game. Honestly, at this point, Destiny could last you well into next year, potentially well into the first announcement of whatever Bungie's doing next with Destiny. There's that much content here, and the price at which it's available for new players is freaking outstanding. So check it out, consider it, maybe watch some other videos on Destiny if it's something that grabs your attention, maybe add it to your Christmas wish list this year. If you have any other questions for me in regards to Rise of Iron, feel free to let me know down in the comment section below. If you'd like to share some of your thoughts in regards to your experience with Rise of Iron, feel free to do so. But try and keep it spoiler free, guys. There's a lot of people out there that probably have not yet had the chance to boot up Rise of Iron. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.